Welcome to First. I'm Nichelle Polston along with Shirley Min and Mark Eichman. Keeping young men from returning to prison is the hope of a Wilmington program. First reports on their efforts this week.
The hopes and dreams of Delaware storyteller were realized last month when she took her program internationally for what she found out was the ultimate story.
The ultimate act of giving is when teachers can be an inspiration to their students. Experience how one such teacher makes that happen. First, your public media news magazine starts now.
The recent vote in the Delaware House to reform the death penalty means that effort is done for now, but that doesn't change the overall tone for prison reform that has been coming from many corners of the state. Keeping young men from returning to prison is a big part of that effort. That's why a program run by the Hope Commission is gaining a lot of attention as a model for an effort that could go statewide and maybe even nationally. It's our first look this week.
I'd rather crawl to my future than to run back to my past.
49-year-old Tyrone Williams admits it's not easy, but with the help of Wilmington's Hope Commission, it's certainly possible.
I remember when I first started coming here, it was kind of hard because I was really closed off, not really open, not really receptive to people. So that was like a problem in the beginning.
However, leaders here and partnerships at other local programs helped to change Tyrone's attitude.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew what I wasn't going to do. You know what I mean? I knew certain situations that I wasn't going to allow myself to ever be back in that situation again, no matter what. You know what I mean? So that was the foundation for me. 3
years behind bars was also enough to motivate Tyrone.
It's just a horrible experience, you know? You got to dig deep in yourself. I just remember that I spent most of the time reflecting on my situation, you know, my life, what it took for me to get there, you know what I mean, how unhappy I was to be there, how disappointed I was in myself, how I expected more out of myself, and just what was I going to do differently, you know what I mean, now that I had all this time to reflect.
Tyrone even decided to spend extra time in a halfway house just to stay out of trouble until he found employment. He attributes part of his success to a past mentor.
He said the most important thing today is your attitude. He said, and if you change your attitude, everything else will fall behind it. You know what I mean? And he had this formula up on his wall that broke it down for you. And then that's when it began to click. You know, and then I start smiling more.
Nowadays, Tyrone is working at a Delaware recycling plant, taking care of his family, furthering his education, and encouraging recently released prisoners to change their lives.
Y'all go to jail and y'all play chess every day on the boards. Some of y'all become expert chess players on the board. But when you come out into the world, you don't know how to play chess. You don't know how to make moves to set up from one situation to the next situation.
Devin Hargraves is one of the many men benefiting from advice similar to Tyrone's. The 25-year-old is a proud father of a 5-year-old daughter that he walks to school daily. He is determined to not go back to jail. Instead, he's focusing on making a difference in his daughter's life as being a role model.
Come on in out of the cold.
It feels excellent. I get a chance to be with her at the time she needs me the most. I mean, school is important, so I definitely feel good about that.
Hargraves says transitioning back into society would be tough without the Hope Commission that gives him a sense of family.
I'm focused and I see a lot of things clearly, and now I understand life more.
According to Executive Director Charles Madden, the Hope Commission has helped 120 men since October 2015. That's a significant number that could lead to more services for offenders outside of the Wilmington area.
So lots of conversations about trying to increase the amount of people we serve here. But also when we started out, we were hoping to try and create a model that could be expanded across the state. So at some point, we'd like to see ourselves expanded into some of the other counties because there's a need for this, across the state, and so we'd like to try to meet that need.
Meanwhile, Tyrone's message remains dedicated to sharing words of wisdom, this time from his grandmother.
I remember what my grandmother told me when I was a kid, and she always told me this, and I always heard her, you know, but some things you have to find out for yourself. She said, nothing's good going to come out of anything bad.
Thanks to support from the Hope Commission, Hargraves, the young man who you saw walking his daughter to school, was recently offered a job. He's now working as an environmental specialist with the Department of Parks and Recreation in Wilmington.
That's great news. Now, does the Hope Commission take walk-ins?
Well, not at this time, Shirley. Only referrals from the Department of Corrections and other agencies dedicated to helping former offenders, of course. And I like to add, thanks to support from the state, the Hope Commission is able to rehabilitate most of the men who actually walk through their doors.
Okay, so should we expect to see the Hope Commission expanding in the state with other locations?
Well, that is certainly the goal, but not at this time. Nothing is set in stone, but the goal is to definitely open other locations in the state of Delaware.
Okay, thank you so much, Nichelle. You can check this story out again if you go online to WHYY.org/first.
Delaware Governor Jack Markell joins us for our first person segment this week. Governor, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Great to be with you.
So in January 2015, you presented your budget. You grimly described it as a very difficult budget. This year, very different. It's a 5% increase over last year. What's changed?
Well, the latest forecast by the Delaware Economic and Financial Advisory Council, known as DFAC, certainly alleviated some of the challenges that we had expected. But that being said, we can't miss an opportunity to make sure that the state's finances are on a sustainable path going forward. We do have a AAA credit rating, which is great, but there's no question items like health care continue to pose a real challenge.
And we'll get into some of your changes on health care coming up. You're confident that the DFAC numbers will hold? It seems like they can change, obviously, before June.
Well, they do change, and that's just the nature of the beast. But, they're the best projections that a very smart group of people can make based on the information available to them every time they meet. But it does change, and that's just the process. And if it does change again, we'll have to deal with that. And
through your 8 budget cycles in office in your 2 terms, enormous challenges facing the state economically, way more than your predecessors. And the budgets have held to minimal growth. This year,
negative, in fact, when you adjust for inflation and population, actually negative, almost about negative 0.4% over the 8 years.
And so this year's 5% growth, a lot of people look at that. Is this a sign that good times are coming again, that we're sort of out of the worst, and that the state is back on firmer footing?
Well, look, I think if you look at it from a jobs perspective, we just came off the best 2 consecutive years of job growth that Delaware has ever had. A year and a half ago, we regained all the jobs lost in the recession. In the last year, 13,700 more Delawareans are to work. Gallup just came out with this survey. In 2009, their survey said we had one of the 10 worst economies in the country in terms of job growth. This year, we're number 4 in the country. So we've made great progress. We continue to have significant challenges just because of the way the world around us is changing, technology and globalization. Our job is to make sure that the people of Delaware are poised to be, work, the high-skilled jobs of the future, and that's what we focus so much of our time on.
And you mentioned in the budget in your proposal changes to healthcare costs, and specifically state employees having to pitch in a little bit more of their monthly costs, the state pitching in more as well, and then new employees being forced into a health savings account instead of the PPO or the HMO. Take us through a little bit of the decision-making behind that. Obviously, when you say state employees are going to have to pay more, that's not going to come across good to state employees' ears, but take us through kind of the decision-making process behind that.
So there are 2 big pieces. One, as you mentioned, state employees paying more. The way that it works, and we came to an understanding a few years ago, passed a new law. If there have to be additional premiums paid, the state, which means taxpayers, pay about 90% of that. So the taxpayers are paying significantly more, and employees have to pay about 10% of the increase. So that's one piece of it. The real change has to do with new employees. And we had to make a change for new employees, in part, frankly, to limit the changes for current employees. Part of the issue is we have to do a much better job, not just within the state, but in society generally, of making people better customers of health care. The fact is, we have a system now where for most of us who have health care, if a doctor tells us to get an MRI or a CAT scan, we're going to get it and we're going to have no idea what it costs because we don't really feel it in our pocketbook. That is simply not sustainable. And so the health savings accounts are really intended in large part. It's still a good plan, and we think a lot of existing employees will choose to take it as well. It's something that a lot of businesses, a lot of employers have moved to. We think one of the benefits of it is going to make people better purchasers of health care to bring utilization down. One of the reasons that health care costs have gotten so out of control is utilization is so high because nobody ever feels it in their pocketbook.
Another budget item, you've allocated some money, $6 million, to support changes to the Wilmington, the redistricting process.
Right.
But there's some specific language that you used in presenting that money about what that plan should look like. Explain that.
So this is something that goes back. Well, you know, when you think about it, we're almost at 40 years now since the busing started, and so the fact is, families in Wilmington have really become disenfranchised when it comes to their kids' education because with the kids divided up, with the Wilmington kids divided up amongst a bunch of school districts, if you look at the board representation on these districts, there's not a lot of representation from the city of Wilmington. That's a big problem. And the second problem is it's really hard for families, you know, who may be struggling to get down to Newark to be at after-school activities, to be at parent-teacher conferences and the like. So it is time for us to redraw these lines. And what I said to the General Assembly is that if a plan comes before them that is clear and that's responsible and that does not put, you know, any kind of extra burden on any particular district, I'd like them to support it. And I think we have a lot of work to do, but I do think, I mean, everybody recognizes that this busing really and sending all these kids to Wilmington, to Newark, really just hasn't worked out.
So you have less than a year left now in office. A sense of urgency behind one or two things that you really need to get done this year that is kind of burning inside?
Yeah, and so I take my sense of urgency a lot from the people that I speak to in the state, and I really do believe the most important thing that we can do is make sure that Delawareans are positioned to do the high-skilled jobs of the future. So we've got a lot of workforce development initiatives underway that I want to push over the line, a lot of educational initiatives underway as well. We've got a proposal around changing the way we compensate teachers to make sure that more great teachers can stay in the classroom instead of having to go into administration to make more money. And also our starting salaries for teachers are just really low compared to surrounding districts. I want to change that as well.
Too early to talk about what the next year after this may hold for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've got, one of the things, this job, I love this job. It's an amazing opportunity, but it really does require all of my attention. My philosophy has always been if I do good things, good opportunities will present themselves. Maybe I'll work the cameras at WHYY because you got a couple of older cameramen and they must be on their way out soon. Well, so I think you may need a replacement.
All right. Well, we appreciate your time spent here at WHYY and First as always, and maybe a year. Who knows? You put in your application.
I just might.
We'll put in a good word for you.
Okay.
Governor Markell, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And you can watch this interview on newsworks.org/Delaware.
Coming up on First, an Archmere Academy teacher brings his real-world art experience into the classroom and becomes an inspiration to his students.
Delaware storyteller Tahira has always dreamed of taking her stories abroad. Thanks to a little help from the Delaware Division of the Arts and a push from her daughter, Tahira's dream has come true. And now she has an amazing story to tell.
When will people, for the sake of love and the sake of democracy?
Students at the William Henry Middle School in Dover are learning that change doesn't come easy.
So I just wanted to share with them stories in history in which the law was wrong. Everyday people, students, teachers stood up across this country many, many times in the face of injustice. And in standing up, they were breaking the law. That sometimes it is necessary for everyday people to risk their freedom.
And the students who are studying civil disobedience seem to relate to the stories.
I always say that if you tell somebody a fact, they may remember it. You tell them the truth, they may believe it. But if you tell them a story, it will live in their hearts forever.
Tahira has been telling stories with audiences for more than 20 years, a profession she didn't even know existed.
I was at the Please Touch Museum in Philadelphia, and I saw a storyteller. A year and a half later, I quit my job, corporate America, insurance, and I started doing it full time.
Tahira first fell in love with storytelling as a child while listening to her father.
He used to go to schools and show his films, talk about things about culture, talk about things about history, and then have a Q&A at the end. He was deeply committed to that. And that drove his travels to the Caribbean and to Ghana.
Tahira was recently selected to represent the National Association of Black Storytellers at an international conference in Ghana. Her lifelong dream to visit the country her father told her so much about was close at hand, but the opportunity came with a financial challenge.
I'm invited to perform there in West Africa at a Pan-African festival. And my daughter was like, "You have got to be kidding me, Mom. You cannot say no to this." On our vision board in our kitchen is a picture of Ghana that is my symbol. It's just in the corner, nothing elaborate, that always reminds me daily that that's what I want to do.
So she turned for help and applied for a grant.
The Delaware Division of Arts is an awesome organization. They have a grant called the Opportunity Grant for artists to apply for.
Getting the Delaware Division of Arts grant was the first step. Next, raise the rest of the funds, which she did through a crowdsourcing campaign suggested by her daughter. From there, it was on to Ghana.
It was life transforming. And one of my performances was at the Cape Castle dungeons, where Africans were shackled and put into rooms like slabs of cattle. And I thought, this is going to be so difficult. I just knew it was. I was like, this is going to be so difficult. And I tell you, with every section that we went in, I felt stronger and stronger and stronger. And in that room, I felt like a giant. I felt like a giant. And I kept screaming, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." They never thought we would survive.
The trip also gave her a chance to search for the man she calls her brother, a man her father met and affectionately adopted during his visit to Ghana.
I thought, wow, Daddy, I would just say to him, what if I could go and find justice? Now, I don't know if he's in Ghana. Ghana a country, not a town. What if I could connect with justice?
Armed with a picture of her brother, Tahira asked almost everyone she came in contact with if they knew him. Interestingly, the one person she didn't ask, the owner of the hotel where she stayed, had the answer.
And she picked up her phone, called one person. "You got Justice's number? Hold on, somebody wants to talk to you." And she handed me the phone, and I said, "Justice." And that's all I said, and he said my name. I got to manifest the intention that I said I was going to do without even knowing the how. And that's the power. That's the power when you're connected to the divine.
Tahira's storytelling career has taken her beyond school auditoriums and events. She shared how she was invited to the Delaware Coalition Against Domestic Violence conference to teach health practitioners how storytelling can help patients in their healing process.
What do you get when you combine the words car and advertise together? The answer: Carvatize. The owner of the company is a Delaware guy who noticed that there was a channel in the advertising market being ignored. And that's when Carvatize was born. To you, this may just look like an ordinary car with advertisements posted all over it, but it's not. It's equipped with much more, including a GPS monitor to determine the number of times the ad is viewed.
I didn't know what I wanted to do, Figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life is a really hard decision to make. And I kind of stumbled into this and fell in love with working on it 3 years ago and haven't looked back since.
For Mac Nagaswami, it all started with a vision in college that turned into a reality before he graduated from the University of Delaware.
I was amazed that marketers were using buses to carry an advertisement and billboards to carry advertisements, but here's this other channel.
That channel was the private vehicle owner. According to Nagaswami, he thought, why not use everyday cars to advertise, which are getting more exposure than buses and billboards combined?
We're able to get exposure in areas out of home, which no other channel can reach. You know, billboards, you have to play with the inventory that's given to you. Transit, you have a set path. But what the unique ability of this out-of-home car advertising channel is to be able to get your message seen in the other areas that can't be reached.
The company also hires drivers willing to travel with the brand on their cars, from soccer mom to office worker.
It's a very varied spectrum of people who this applies to. But the common denominator of what they all share is just this mindset of it makes sense. I drive a lot. I like advertising. I like this brand. I'm okay with advertising for it. And if it helps pay my gas bill or whatever, you know, different people use the funds for different reasons, why not?
One of those drivers is high school teacher Jenn O'Neill, one of the first to sign up for the job.
In the beginning, on the first rap, people were like, why are you doing that? Like, why did you do that? And this and that. I wouldn't do that with my car. Now, people are asking me, where can I do it?
Today, the company continues to build, working its way to clients outside of Delaware, now taking Carvatize to the big leagues.
The next step that we're going to take is definitely Philadelphia. It's a much larger market. There's a lot more brands that are centered in that location who are trying to reach the DMA of Philadelphia and the surrounding regions.
If you're wondering if the advertisement decals ruin the cars, the answer is no. The wrapping actually protects the vehicles. Mack also shared that he and employees wrap their personal cars in their client's message as well, just to show that they really care about getting their client's message out.
That goofy cartoon head was drawn by Rob Torno, so we let it introduce his segment here on First. Rob, thanks for joining us.
No sweat.
So we're talking minimum wage and the effort to increase it in Dover, a process that's taking a little bit too much time in your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, we've been calling for minimum wage increases for years now, and all economic studies show that they have a minimal impact on employment, but a big impact on spending, because the people getting it are people that tend to need to buy groceries or pay for bills, you know, and that money goes right back into the economy. We have a proposal. It's passed through the Senate to raise Delaware's minimum wage to, I think, $10.25. Right. But that's not until 2020, which sounds sort of like a future date, you know. Just feel like we could be doing a lot better for our minimum wage employees.
And it is they stripped away the proposal that would have tied it to a sort of a cost of living, and it would have keep going up. So that's kind of stripped away, I guess, to get it passed.
And they pulled out the provision. I mean, I guess technically it's still there, but, you know, the idea of it ever reaching $15 seems more like a pipe dream now than any sort of legislative reality, which is a shame because it would really impact positively a lot of businesses in the state.
And then just in time for the Super Bowl, we have a sports cartoon as always. You see a little bit of a double standard for Panthers quarterback Cam Newton.
Yeah, I mean, you have a lot of negativity towards Cam, gloating, celebrating. But this is what these guys do. I mean, I know the NFL tries to clamp down on the fun, but it's part of what endears him. He gives footballs to kids. He's, like, enjoying himself. Just let him have fun.
And he's very, very good,
he's
for sure.
Awesome.
All right, with a busy political season ahead, including some open races here in Delaware, we will be calling on Rob Torno a lot. Rob, thanks so much.
That's right.
And you can follow Rob and read him at newsworks.org.
For 35 years, artist and teacher Terry Newitt has been inspiring the students in his Archmere Academy classroom. Terry is also an accomplished painter. First Experience visited his classroom and home studio to learn more about his work and the students he inspires.
I grew up in England. In an era, believe it or not, we didn't have television. I was 8 years old before we got a little TV, and I'm so glad because it sparked my imagination. I knew I started to draw, you know, just to not be bored, you know. And I knew I had a talent even at that age. And then we immigrated to America. My father got a job with DuPont, and I settled in Chadds Ford. Went to Chadds Ford School, and I saw Wyeth paintings all over the place. I'm like, wow, you know, fell in love with art. I really wanted to teach art, so I ended up getting my master's degree and ended up at Archmere Academy, and it's been a great career. Right now, we're in a world where technology is just overcoming these kids, and nothing's coming out this way. Everything's coming in this way. And electronic narcotics, I like to call it. And when they're actually doing something with their hands, with their minds, creative problem solving, they just eat it up. And it seems like the more this technology expands, the more they need what I'm trying to impart.
He is very creative and definitely kind of does things his own way. And it does take a lot of getting used to, but he really does make you a lot better. I've grown a lot as an artist from his teaching.
I learn a lot from them. It is a give and take in a way. They teach me a lot. They think I'm have a young attitude, and I'm always positive, and they love it.
The dude is insane. I love him. He's my favorite teacher. Mr. New is just awesome. Before I took his class, I never knew how to even draw a house. I just drew stick figures and stuff. And now it's I'm creating these beautiful, amazing paintings. And I'm just amazed by everything I've learned in just 2.5 years of having him.
He's kind of really good at helping you improve your own interpretation, not just tell you what to do, but let you discover it for yourself, which is really hard to do, but he manages to execute that.
I think you can be an art educator and not work as a serious practicing artist, but I think you are a better, much more dynamic art educator if they see that that's what you're devoted to yourself in your life. So it's been great balance, I think I was given a gift to teach, an obligation to teach. I could look at success stories from my art sphere students. It's incredible. I think your goal as a teacher is to have students supersede you. And I have had so many students supersede me. I'm happy what I've done, but immensely proud. The whole idea of love what you're doing, hopefully love the dynamic, is something that you strive for in this profession. I could retire and be happy and after 42 years of teaching, but there's still joy, and there's still joy working with young people. I have a spring in my step all the time.
Many of Terry's students have gone on to great things. One designed the balloon canopy in the Pixar movie Up. Illustrator Mark Smith designed the 2008 Beijing Olympics poster, and Paul Miyota was one of the artists who worked on the Twin Towers of Lights in New York. Now you can see more of Terry's work now through February 21st at the Chadds Ford Gallery in Chadds Ford, PA. Get more information on Archmere Academy when you visit them on the web at archmereacademy.com.
And we will be with you twice next week. Join us Monday at 11 and again at 5:30 on Tuesday for a first extra conversation with the Delaware congressional delegation. Then join us on Friday when economist Robert Fry Jr. talks about some of the decisions that led to the Dow-DuPont merger.
We have even more coming up in the weeks to come, so stay tuned. That is first for this week. We thank you for watching. For Shirley Min and Mark Eichman, I'm Nichelle Polston. Have a great week.